really long time to confront him. Much of what I had to say is very personal to me. My dad was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 59. He was the healthiest person I've ever met. Never smoked, never drank, exercised, healthy, took care of himself. And after my dad succeeded the first round of leukemia, he started putting his life back together. He was told he would never be able to go to work again, and then once again, he was hit with leukemia for the second time. Once you've had someone in your life, or met someone, who needs required daily medical care, you will understand why the conversation of pre-existing health care is so very important. I have been a lifelong Republican. In fact, I have voted for David Young twice. I will not be voting for him again. We deserve somebody in Washington who will advocate for us. We deserve better. We deserve someone who will not lie to us. We deserve somebody who will do what's best for Iowans. You see, when I explained to Mr. Young that you have any right to vote whichever way you want, you should, but you shouldn't tell your constituents you're voting one way, like you did my colleagues, and then hours later vote a different way. That's unethical, we deserve better, and that's lying. This year alone, over 1 million people are going to be expected to be diagnosed with cancer. Over 600,000 of those people will die. We have a responsibility to make sure that our insurance companies understand what pre-existing healthcare conditions mean and how they matter to Iowans. Furthermore, we have a job to uphold, to put somebody in Washington who is going to look out for us. We need Cindy Axne. We need her for our kids. We need Cindy Axne. Washington needs Cindy Axne. I'm honored to introduce Cindy Axne.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for that, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm really grateful to see such turnout today. You know, Carrie hits the nail on the head. We cannot send elected representatives out to Washington who are in the pockets of their party or wealthy corporations and special interests. And that's why we're having this press conference today. We want every single person in this district to know we've got an opportunity to send someone to Washington who's going to stand up for the voices of Iowans and not for the voices of special interests and wealthy people. And that's why we need to win this election. You know, Carrie makes a really good point. What we've seen here with candidate David Young is that he's often in town talking with his constituents about what he says he's going to do. And then he turns around and goes to Washington and does exactly the opposite. But that's because he's got Washington and special interests in his pocket. He's taken tens of thousands of dollars from big pharma and health insurance companies, and then he turned around and voted for a tax plan that puts $42 billion back in their pockets. He's taken money from corporations and then voted for this disastrous tax bill that puts more money back into the pockets of those wealthy shareholders and puts the burden on hardworking Iowa families. We've created $1.9 trillion in debt. That's what the intended $1.9 trillion is what's going to come out of this GOP tax bill. And who do you think is going to be paying for that? All of us right here. Hardworking Iowans will be paying that off. Hardworking people across this country will be held responsible for that debt while Congressman Young goes to Washington and continues to support the needs of the wealthiest among us and corporations. That's absolutely not acceptable. We need to send people out to Washington who we can trust, who are ethical, who are honest, and who will always stand up for what's right. And that's why I'm here today, because I don't ever want to see people like Carrie and her father and her family thrown under the bus because Congressman Young says he's going to help us out and then turns around and does exactly the opposite. Right here in town today is Speaker Paul Ryan. You want to know why he's here? Because he's supporting David Young to get out to Washington. A year ago, Congressman Young looked Iowans in the eye, looked Carrie and her co-workers in the eye, said he would vote against the Republican health care bill, and a day later turned around in Washington and voted for that bill. You want to know why? Because Speaker Paul Ryan said, if you don't vote for this bill, we're going to take money from your offices and make sure that you don't have the resources you need to get reelected. And what did he do? He did exactly that. David Young went and voted for the bill, and now Paul Ryan's in town stumping for him, and by the way, has put $2 million of resources in campaign attack ads against me. That's pay for play at its very finest. That's something we don't need in Washington. We need to elect officials who do better than that. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Well, it's exactly why I'm running in this race and why I refuse to take any corporate PAC money, because unlike my opponent, I'm going to be out there working for you, for the people of the 3rd District, and that's not just words I'm saying, that's a promise that I intend to keep with you, unlike my opponent, who as candidate Young goes around this district and tells people that he's working for the people of the 3rd District. But Congressman Young goes back out to Washington and votes for bills that protect the wealthiest among us, corporations and special interests, and he votes with this administration 99% of the time, more than Steve King. This guy always takes corporations and special interests and the wealthy and their needs ahead of hardworking Iowans. So we need a change here. And that's why I'm announcing today my 7-part plan to make sure that we take money out of politics and ensure that government is held accountable to the people that it serves. And I'm going to get out to Washington and make sure that this plan gets implemented. And I'll tell you what, it starts by refusing to take corporate PAC money, and that's why End Citizens United is supporting me, because I will do everything I possibly can to make sure that we overturn Citizens United.
Yeah.
David Young voted against, or I should say voted against our best interests when he went out and voted for the disastrous GOP tax bill, which would take away coverage for people with pre-existing conditions and raise premiums on Iowans, especially older Iowans, in what the AARP calls an age tax. We absolutely can do better than that. And then he voted for a GOP tax bill that puts the burden on hardworking Iowans while giving more money to corporations and special interests. And you know what they're saying now? They're saying that they need to pull from Medicare and Social Security so that they can cover the gap in the revenue that we're not bringing into this country. That's absolutely unacceptable. I will never let anyone touch our Medicare or Social Security. Those are hard-earned benefits that Iowans deserve, and I will protect them as your representative out in Congress. So I'm here today to say it is time we get money out of politics. It is time we elect officials who are ethical, who are honest, and who will always stand up for the people in their district. It's time we put people before money. It's time we put people before party. It's time we elect somebody out to Congress who's going to make sure Iowans have a voice out there. And I'm here today to let you know I will always put Iowans' priorities over politics, over political party leadership, and over corporations and special interests any day of the week. It's why I got into this race, because we all deserve better. And if Congressman Young thinks we're going to forget the fact that he threw us under the bus with his vote to eliminate coverage for pre-existing conditions, he's wrong. We're not going to forget that, are we?
No!
Not when people like Kerry are here telling us their stories, because it is so important that Iowans have affordable quality coverage. So thank you so much for being here today. Let's get out there and make sure that we win this election. Our heart and soul of our state is at risk. The heart and soul of this country is at risk. We need to protect our democracy, we need to take money out of politics, and we need to absolutely ensure that who we send out to Washington will always stand up for Iowans, will be ethical and honest, and will make sure that your voices are heard. Thank you so much. I'm Cindy Axne, and I'm running for Congress.
All right, folks, thank you all. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
He's ready to volunteer.